mean to somebody just starting out in this industry to be here and to be a featured guest?
You know, it means a lot. It's been 11 years for me. Clive is like my father. You know, it all started with him.
Clive Davis put Sean Combs in position. That's what Clive Davis does.
In this game of music industry,
come on now,
it can sometimes be a gift and a curse. And don't sign over that gift that you have to nobody. Control your own stuff, because in this industry, it's just a game of prostitution. And they will use your gift, and you will go home and you will have nothing.
I'm unapologetic and I'm unwavering about it. Because when I see this woman, Oprah Winfrey, how do you as a black woman watch another black woman be thrown under the bus based off of a lie?
They promise you fame, they promise you money, they promise you the world, but what they don't reveal is the true cost behind it all. And according to Fantasia, that cost is far more dangerous than most people ever realize. After surviving some of the darkest corners of the music industry, Fantasia is finally pulling back the curtain. She's been through pain, manipulation, and exploitation, and now she's exposing the people she believes are responsible for creating and protecting a system that preys on young talent. In a shocking reveal, Fantasia is naming some of the most powerful figures in entertainment: Tyler Perry, Diddy, and Oprah. Fantasia said she's seen how the industry lures young, hungry artists with promises of fame and success, only to strip them of their identity, their voice, and in some cases, their soul. She's not just talking about bad contracts or greedy executives. She's talking about something deeper, something spiritual, even ritualistic. She claims there's a system that uses dreams as bait and turns people into pawns for power. She said that these so-called leaders and gatekeepers present themselves as saviors, mentors, or visionaries, but behind the scenes, they're part of a machine that demands complete control. Fantasia believes these industry giants don't just support the system, they help run it, and young artists, desperate for a chance, often have no idea what they're walking into until it's too late. Having lived through the emotional toll and mental breakdowns that came with her own journey, Fantasia says she's speaking out now not for fame, but for truth. She wants people to understand that this industry isn't just tough, it's dangerous, especially when people like Perry, Diddy, and Oprah are protected, while the most vulnerable continue to suffer in silence.
I was told that it was over for me. I had my daughter at 17 years old. I dropped out of school at night. When I went to the Idol, nobody was just opening up the door. They were saying, wait a minute, she's been through this, she's been through that. But I wanted them to see that no matter what you go through, you can make up your mind to say, I'm gonna walk away from this and I'm going here. I can't forget my past, but I'm not gonna let my past hold me back. So I was like, I have to do it.
Fantasia has reached a point in her life where she's no longer interested in protecting the same people who once stood by and watched her fall apart. After years of silence, she's opening up about the darker layers of the entertainment world. Layers she says are run by individuals the public praises, but who, behind the scenes, exploit the very talent they claim to support. She's spoken about the emotional and financial toll the industry took on her, explaining how people she trusted led her into situations that drained her instead of building her up. Fantasia said the support she thought she had was never real. It was conditional. People showed up when things were good and disappeared the moment she needed real help. And many of those who promised guidance weren't there to help, they were there to take. At the top of that structure were powerful names who shaped her early career. Among them were Clive Davis and Sean Combs. Fantasia has made it clear that the concern they showed on the surface never translated into true care for her well-being. Decisions were made based on profit, not people. And now, with ongoing legal investigations pulling back the curtain on how some of these music executives operate, her story takes on a new kind of weight. This isn't just about one artist's pain. Fantasia has drawn attention to how people like Combs, Perry, and Oprah have shaped careers, but often at a serious cost. She has suggested that what happened to her fits into a broader pattern. Young talent is brought in, made promises, and pushed to deliver results. But once they've been drained emotionally, mentally, or financially, they're left behind to pick up the pieces alone. She said she was never fully prepared for what came with fame. She was still young, still learning, but the people around her were already treating her like a product. She's reflected on how she ended up isolated, with no guidance and no understanding of how quickly things could spiral. It wasn't just a matter of losing money. It was the emotional collapse, the sense of being abandoned in a world that pretended to love her when the cameras were on. And the people she now calls out weren't minor players. These were individuals celebrated for their influence and leadership, but Fantasia believes they were also part of a system that benefited from artists being uninformed, overwhelmed, and easy to control. She has said that when everything fell apart, the ones with the power to help chose to stay silent. Now, with more voices coming forward and serious accusations being made public, Fantasia's past doesn't look like an isolated incident. It looks like part of a much larger truth, one that's been hidden under the surface for years and is finally starting to come to light. Plus, with Diddy being linked to serious legal trouble and his long-standing ties to Clive Davis being talked about again, people are starting to look back at Fantasia's story in a very different way. For years, her lowest moments were brushed off as personal struggles, but with everything coming out now, it's starting to feel like she may have just been one of many who were caught in something much bigger. The question isn't just whether she struggled, but how much of it was the result of being thrown into a world designed to take more than it gives. Fantasia wasn't just young when she entered the spotlight, she was vulnerable. At 19, she had talent and determination, but no one truly guided her. She didn't have someone experienced in her corner explaining what she was signing or who she could actually trust. She was moving fast, going from city to city, camera to camera, with people constantly being introduced to her, accountants, agents, handlers, many of whom she had never met before and didn't have time to really get to know. She's talked openly about how overwhelming it all was. She said it was like being pulled in every direction, with people constantly making decisions around her, not with her. Money was coming in from all over, shows, deals, endorsements, but nobody was really sitting her down and helping her understand how it worked or what she should be doing with it. Everything moved too quickly, and she was expected to keep up without any room to pause or think. Looking back, it's clearer now that what she went through wasn't just the chaos of fame. It was the result of being left to figure it out on her own, in a system that didn't care if she made it or not. And with more and more stories coming to the surface, lawsuits, testimonies, headlines, it seems like Fantasia's past might have been part of a much larger pattern that's finally starting to be exposed. Now, Fantasia is not just after Diddy. For her, there were a lot of other moguls, and while they may not have lawsuits against them, that's not going to stop her from going after them as well. And she's not scared because she has had her fair share of troubles, and she knows how to kick ass. Not long after her rise to fame on American Idol, Fantasia found herself facing something most people couldn't imagine: a lawsuit from her own father. The case was over claims in her memoir, but it wasn't just about legal drama. It marked the beginning of a pattern, one where the people around her, including family, started pulling away or turning on her once money and fame entered the picture. Clive Davis had signed her to J Records, and at first, things looked promising. Her debut album performed well, but when the second one didn't hit the same numbers, the energy shifted. The meetings weren't as friendly. The same faces that once celebrated her success started to disappear. The support she thought she had, gone. The money, gone too, more than once. And that's not just about bad luck or mismanagement. That's a deeper problem. Something in the system wasn't built to protect her. It was built to use her up. The more you look at her career, the clearer it becomes that Fantasia was never set up for long-term success. Not with the way the industry operates. Not under executives like Clive Davis. Not in an environment that profits off the stories and talent of young black women and then drops them the moment the spotlight fades. But it wasn't just about the loss of income or fame. What Fantasia lost was something more personal: her sense of peace, her sense of self. When she stepped into the role of Celie in The Color Purple on Broadway in 2007, it was more than just a performance. She was stepping into a character that mirrored her real life. Abandoned, misunderstood, overlooked. And the emotional weight of that role followed her home every single night. She said before that no one taught her how to come out of character, how to separate her real pain from the one she portrayed on stage. The only person who stepped in to help her emotionally, Taraji P. Henson. Years later, when the opportunity came up to reprise that same role for the 2023 film, she almost walked away. She knew what it would cost her to go there again. Because for Fantasia, Celie wasn't just a character. It was a reflection of everything she had survived: the hurt, the abandonment, the betrayal, and the weight of carrying everyone else's expectations while still trying to heal herself. Her journey isn't unique. It mirrors what happened to other artists who came up under the same system. Whitney Houston is the most tragic example. She also came from a gospel background. She was also signed by Clive Davis. And like Fantasia, she was pushed hard from a young age and expected to hold it all together, while those around her profited from the chaos. One made it out, one didn't. So when Fantasia says that everyone who started with her is gone, she's not being dramatic. She's stating a fact. She's one of the few who's still standing, not because the system protected her, but because she fought her way through it, alone. With Diddy now caught up in federal court battles alongside heavy hitters like Clive Davis, and with countless heartbreaking stories of young artists who vanished too soon or faded into silence, it's hard not to wonder how many others were crushed before they ever got a chance to speak out. Fantasia Barrino's story shines a harsh light on that ugly truth. Back on August 9th, 2010, Fantasia hit the headlines, but not for anything good. What the tabloids didn't show was the storm raging inside her for years. Behind the glitz and glam, label executives disappeared, managers went quiet, and the cameras stopped rolling. All that was left was Fantasia, alone in a closet, staring at herself with sleeping pills and Bayer in hand. She later said she didn't care if she woke up, she just wanted the pain to end. Days before, she had shut herself off completely, barely eating, barely speaking. No one around her, not family, not her team, not the people who smiled with her on red carpets or cashed checks from her tours. Notice the breakdown happening behind closed doors. Meanwhile, gossip columns ran wild with rumors about an alleged affair with a married man. But Fantasia revealed that was only the spark. The real fire had been burning deep long before. She wrote goodbye letters to everyone she cared about. Her daughter Zion, her troubled little brother, her estranged brother Tiny, her manager, her best friend, even her mother, hiding them in a book to be found after she was gone. She asked everyone to leave, locked herself in, and stared at herself in the mirror for hours before taking those pills, fully intending to never wake up. When she did wake up, groggy and hooked up to IVs in the hospital, she was angry but alive. The news broke fast. TMZ, CNN, local outlets, but no one wanted to talk about how the industry swept these crises under the rug. Just like with Whitney Houston, Michael Jackson, and others, there was always a polished plan to protect the image, but no real plan to save the artist. She was released on the condition that she attend therapy. For the first time, Fantasia stopped pretending everything was okay. She sat in rooms full of CEOs and lawyers and saw that even they were broken, but the pressure never let up. Within days, she was back on camera, pushing a new album and a tour that was already booked. The label told her to rest. She knew she couldn't. No one gave her grace or protection, just a relentless push for the next dollar. This wasn't a coincidence. Fantasia's lowest point happened under a system crafted by Clive Davis and tightly linked to Diddy, the same Diddy now facing trial that could drag more industry giants into the spotlight. Fantasia's pain wasn't just personal, it was a glaring warning. And now, finally, people are starting to pay attention. By the time she hit 40, Fantasia wasn't chasing hits anymore. She was chasing peace, open and unfiltered during press runs for The Color Purple. She wasn't just selling a movie, she was reclaiming her narrative. The woman who almost lost everything playing Celie on Broadway was now showing the world she survived. And let's not forget, the web extends further. Figures like Oprah and Tyler Perry, who've been lionized as champions, are also tangled in this story. Powerful players who've helped build and break young talent behind the scenes. Fantasia's survival is more than just a personal triumph. It's a spotlight on a toxic system that has long exploited vulnerable artists, especially black women, and discarded them when they stopped making headlines. Her story isn't just about one woman's battle, it's about an industry that's finally being forced to reckon with its darkest secrets. Fantasia made it clear that stepping back into that role wasn't about chasing a paycheck. In fact, she initially refused the film outright. She said no, even hell no, because she knew revisiting that character meant confronting the pain and trauma she had spent years trying to bury, the feeling of being unseen and tossed aside. But this time around, things were different. She had a solid support system, a team that genuinely cared, a family who stood by her side, and therapy to help her work through it all. For the first time, she was taking control on her own terms.
I had just started traumatic therapy, and I don't know if you guys know what that is.
Yeah, explain that.
Traumatic therapy is when they dig deeper into your childhood, trying to break some things that may be hindering you from your adulthood. And so I had just started that, and I had to stop it. I had to take it away from my life coach and give it to Celie. And so through playing Celie this time, Fantasia was fully healed.
So it made it a new journey.
Yeah. And it felt good.
Right.
Totally different from Broadway.
Yeah.
Totally different.
Because sometimes you can pull from the things that happen in your life and put it into the character, and it makes it that much more real.
She's been open about how the industry failed her. There were no shields, no real protection from the labels or the system. Yet somehow, she survived. Now that she's older and wiser, she's able to look back and take it all in, making peace with her past. When people ask if this is a comeback, she quickly shuts that down. She never really left. This isn't a comeback, it's a rise. Fantasia never had to point fingers or name names to tell her story. Her scars spoke volumes. But But in 2025, with Diddy under federal investigation, Clive Davis's name resurfacing in conversations about exploitation and manipulation, and other major players like Tyler Perry and Oprah caught up in these discussions about how young artists are used and thrown away. Fantasia's journey carries even more weight. These aren't just one-off tragedies. They're part of a dark pattern. Whitney Houston didn't make it out. Janis Joplin didn't make it out. So many women tied to this system through contracts or careers were broken or lost along the way. Fantasia came dangerously close to becoming another sad statistic, but she fought her way back. She pulled herself out of the pit the industry dug for her and rebuilt everything from the ground up. She learned to cook her own meals, drive herself around, and handle her own bills, not to prove anything, but simply because there was no one else to do it for her. That's the part the industry never saw coming. They were banking on another breakdown, another overdose, another story to bury quietly. But Fantasia survived. She's watched the machine that nearly crushed her get hauled into federal court. She's seen once untouchable moguls and mentors finally exposed, and she's witnessed a new generation stepping up, asking hard questions about power, control, and survival in an industry that has long chewed up young talent, especially women of color, and spit them out. Fantasia doesn't want revenge. She doesn't need to drag Diddy, Clive, Perry, or Oprah through the mud. Her life, her music, her faith, and her resilience say everything the industry tried to silence. When she says, "To God be the glory," it's not just for herself, it's for everyone who never made it out alive, because this time, she did, and people love it for her. One person wrote on X, "She's been through the fire and just doesn't want to see another young star get burned." That's love in the realest form. This is far from the first time we're hearing about the exploitation of young artists by some of the biggest names in the entertainment world. Industry giants like Tyler Perry, Diddy, and even Oprah have all been linked, directly or indirectly, to patterns of luring talented, hopeful young people in with dazzling promises of fame, success, and opportunity, only to leave many of them broken, betrayed, and carrying deep emotional scars. It's a cycle that's been going on for decades, hidden beneath the glossy surface of red carpets and chart-topping hits. Look at Justin Bieber's rise, for instance. He was just a kid when he got swept up in a world controlled by powerful players behind the scenes, including Diddy. Bieber's story is a clear example of how fame can be handed out like a prize, but the protection and genuine care for the artist's well-being are often missing. Instead of support, many young stars find themselves caught in manipulative environments where control is king and their mental and emotional health takes a back seat. Then there's Tyler Perry, an industry titan who's faced accusations of silencing voices and blackballing artists who dared to challenge or speak honestly about their experiences. Monique's career, for example, was reportedly damaged because she refused to stay quiet about the toxic atmosphere and unfair treatment behind the scenes. This isn't just about a clash of egos. It highlights a brutal system that punishes those who don't toe the line and protects those who maintain the status quo, no matter the personal cost to the artists. Even Oprah, often seen as a champion of stories and voices, has been connected to similar concerns about how the industry treats its young talents, especially women of color, sacrificing their growth and well-being for short-term gains and public image. The pattern is painfully clear. Young artists are invited into the spotlight, given promises that feel like a dream come true, and then slowly stripped of their autonomy, dignity, and sometimes even their voices. And the worst part is that they will do anything to bring these new artists down. Monique has openly accused Oprah Winfrey of betraying her trust in one of the most painful and personal ways imaginable. The situation began when Oprah reached out to Monique, saying that her brother Gerald Imes wanted to publicly apologize for S.A. her when they were children. Monique made it clear she wanted nothing to do with him, but Oprah assured her she could cancel the show if that's what she wanted. Monique, trying to be understanding, told Oprah not to cancel, hoping her brother might have changed. What Monique didn't know was that Oprah had arranged for her entire family, including her parents, to appear on the show alongside her brother, without Monique being present or even informed. This meant her trauma was being publicly dissected on national television without her consent or participation. Monique expressed how deeply hurt she was, especially since she had shared her family dynamics privately with Oprah beforehand. She said, "You don't tell me you're going to have my mother and my father on your show, and you think that's just okay?" Over the years, Monique has tried to reach out privately to Oprah to discuss what happened, but she says she was never given the chance. She reflected on how painful it is that someone she once saw as a role model, a figure of success who looked like her, could treat her this way. "I tried to talk to you privately, but then you became the great, mighty Oprah Winfrey, and you were too busy to talk," she said. Now Monique is speaking out publicly because she feels she has no other choice. When asked what it would take for her to forgive both Oprah and Tyler Perry, another industry giant accused of controlling and blackballing artists, Monique was clear: accountability. She wants them to own up to their actions. And do you want more examples of what Tyler and these moguls did? Wait, let me fill you in. Tyler Perry is a giant in Hollywood. There's no denying that. He's built an empire from scratch and created opportunities for many, especially black artists, in an industry that's long been exclusive. But along with his success, there's been a growing chorus of voices pointing out some troubling patterns, especially when it comes to how he treats young and emerging talent. Many say he has a reputation for bringing in fresh artists, putting them to work hard, and then either underpaying them or expecting more work without fair compensation. It's a cycle that seems to repeat, leaving artists feeling used and undervalued. One of the most talked about moments that really brought this issue to light happened around the 2023 movie, The Color Purple. Actress Taraji P. Henson, someone who's no stranger to Hollywood success, with an Oscar nomination and a Golden Globe under her belt, opened up during a Sirius XM radio panel interview with Gayle King. It was an emotional conversation that caught a lot of attention. Sitting next to the film's director and other stars, Taraji shared how exhausting it is to work so hard, be gracious and professional, and yet still get paid a fraction of the cost. Imagine that. After years of breaking glass ceilings, winning awards, and building a solid career, she still found herself at the negotiating table feeling like a newcomer, starting from the bottom all over again.
I'm just tired of working so hard, being gracious at what I do, getting paid a fraction of the cost. So I'm only human, and it seems every time I do something and I break another glass ceiling, when it's time to renegotiate, I'm at the bottom again, like I never did what I just did, and I'm just tired.
Taraji's words really struck a chord because her experience isn't unique. She talked about the wear and tear this kind of treatment causes, constantly having to prove yourself, fight for what you deserve, and still feeling overlooked and underpaid. It's a story many artists, especially women of color, know all too well, and unfortunately, it reflects a much bigger issue in Hollywood about how labor, talent, and success are often exploited rather than celebrated.
Imagine being one of the very top of your lane, that to the point where if they don't take you for the role, there's not 3 black actresses that they can say are bigger than you that we're gonna give this to. Imagine you being at that point and have to humble yourself and say, they're not paying me, y'all.
What made this situation even more complicated was the backlash that followed, not just about the pay and respect issues, but about who was to blame. Oprah Winfrey, the film's only black female producer, ended up taking a lot of heat online. Some internet sleuths and critics accused Oprah of adopting similar exploitative tactics as Tyler Perry, even suggesting there was some kind of conflict or beef between the two powerful black women. This narrative was frustrating for many because it shifted the focus away from the real problem, the systemic undervaluing of black women in the industry and the need for fair treatment and compensation. In reality, what this whole firestorm revealed is how difficult it still is for women of color to get fair contracts and proper recognition in Hollywood, even at the highest levels. And it showed that when these conversations happen, they often get twisted into personal conflicts instead of addressing the systemic issues. Tyler Perry's reputation as a demanding, sometimes exploitative figure in the industry, especially with younger talent, is just one piece of that puzzle. His methods, bringing people in, asking them to do a lot, and then paying them less than they deserve, have set off important discussions about respect, fairness, and how the industry treats its rising stars. One of the most unsettling things about all these stories is that we probably don't even know the full picture yet. It started with Diddy and Cassie. Her brave decision to speak out about being exploited opened the floodgates. But then, as more details came out, it wasn't just a one-time thing. People learned that Diddy had a history of similar behavior with other big names like Justin Timberlake and Usher. Suddenly, it felt like a pattern, not an isolated incident. Then the spotlight shifted to Tyler Perry. Stories began to surface about how he exploited young talent like Monique, and even involved big names like Oprah in complicated ways behind the scenes. And just when people thought it might slow down, Fantasia came forward with her own experiences, adding yet another chapter to this troubling narrative. The scary part is, we have no idea how many others haven't spoken up yet. These high-profile stories only scratch the surface. The entertainment world can be intimidating and unforgiving, especially for those just starting out or those who don't have the same kind of influence. There's often so much fear of losing work, being blacklisted, or just not being believed. So when we hear about these stories, whether it's Diddy, Tyler Tyler Perry, Oprah, or Fantasia, it's important to remember that these are likely just the tip of the iceberg. Many more voices are probably still trapped in silence, waiting for a safe moment to come forward. It makes you wonder how many talented people have been pushed around, underpaid, or exploited without anyone knowing. And how long will it take before the industry really starts to change? So, what do you think? Comment down below and let us know. If you like this video, click the subscribe button and hit the bell icon to be the first to see my next video. I post updates like this every week where I uncover the secrets of your favorite celebrities.